Now Taxes is 100% free when you file in the TurboTax app if you didn't file with us last year.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, just do your own taxes in the app by 2/18.
What if I have lots of forms?
All good, all 100% free.
What if I had 3 jobs?
Still 100% free.
What if I once saw Bigfoot?
That has nothing to do with taxes, so still 100% free.
Now that's what I'm talking about.
Now this is Taxes. See if you qualify in the TurboTax app. Excludes TurboTax Live, must start and file in app by 2/18.
Welcome to the Dynasty Dugout Show, a podcast covering all things minor league baseball. Get a front row seat to the action with everything you need to know about the future stars of Major League Baseball. And now, here's your host, Chris Clegg.
And welcome to the Dynasty Dugout Show. Today is Tuesday, March the 5th. We are at a new time now, at the 10 o'clock spot Eastern, as we dive in on all things you need to know. I am excited to be with you guys coming off a spring training trip. So that was a lot of fun. Got to see a lot of good things down there. And we'll be back down in a couple of weeks doing minor league spring training too, which will be really good as well. So I'm looking forward to that, but have a lot to catch up on. I hope that the audio is coming through okay. I know we've had some issues with the live stream audio. The recording audio is fine, but the live stream audio has been kind of hit or miss, so I'm hoping that it sounds all right today. But I'll continue to work on those issues. Something weird going on with the audio going to the stream, but the local recording all sounds good, so that's something that we're working on. But today we are covering the Rockies farm system. Couple things to note from spring training games. We did have a lot go on this weekend. AJ Smith-Shawver looked good again yesterday. The velo was up. The secondaries looked good. He threw the changeup the second most. You know, it's going to be an interesting battle. I think that Reynaldo Lopez, who I also saw, looked pretty good in his 3 innings on Saturday. And I think they're going to give each other a good challenge for the 5th spot. I don't really believe that Bryce Elder is going to take the 5th spot. He just isn't great. You look at kind of what he did in the second half. He was a good innings eater, but that was about it. So I think AJ Smith-Shawver could be a great value in drafts. Reynaldo Lopez potentially too. His stuff looked really, really good. I think the Braves might have unlocked something here with him. So that would be fun to watch and see. Obviously, Ronald Acuna, the news this morning that he is good to go. He will be ready for opening day. That's obviously a big sigh of relief, especially somebody that's had the number 1 pick in several big-time drafts. So far this year, I have several Ronald Acuna shares, so that obviously was concerning that he may have missed time, but he will be back. Will he still run as much? I don't know. I mean, coming off that season when she tore his ACL, he stole 29 bases in 70 games, so I think it's highly possible that he continues to run, but we'll monitor it and we'll see. But I believe that he will be okay. Other news and notes, obviously to hit on, Henry Davis looks really, really good. They've been kind of non-committal to him being the backup catcher, which is odd, but he's playing catcher every day in spring. I think Davis is going to be the guy. The bat speed increases have been huge, and the power's shown. He's hitting for good power. Looks really, really good. Several others that caught my eye this weekend in spring training. Colton Cowser looked really good. In my live looks at him, he looks stronger. Yeah, he obviously has the power, but he had a absolute moonshot off of a lefty. I know it's Martin Perez, but Perez pitched pretty good against the Orioles and was locating the changeup well. Lefties have been a struggle for Cowser in the past, so Cowser might make a run at that opening day roster. How he fits, still a question mark, but I am really excited to see how that one shakes out. Several others of note. Hurston Waldrop pitched. There was a lot of buzz on social media about Waldrop. We were at that outing. I know he didn't start, but that outing he pitched 2 innings. The command is going to have to improve with Waldrop. He's very violent. He's got really good stuff. The splitter's really nasty. The fastball shape is, it's okay. The velo was there. I think he needs to develop a 91 mile an hour cutter to bridge the gap, because the splitter and slider are both in the same velo bands. So I would like to see maybe a cutter added to work on that little bridge in the gap between the fastball. It's set 96, 97 to his slider and splitter. Anyway, I could probably rant for a long time about what I saw this weekend. May do that another time, but we are here to talk Rockies prospects. If you want to check that out on the site, that was written back in December. And so maybe some things have changed a little bit, but Rockies Top Prospects, this was actually written by Nate Handy of B-Sides Prospects. He does a great job covering the Rockies. He also wrote the White Sox systems for me because he is somebody that I trust and knows those systems well. The Rockies actually have some good talent. Let's dive in on that. I want to talk about Jordan Beck, who Beck is one that drafted 38th overall out of Tennessee in the 2022 draft. I thought he had a pretty successful first full season of pro ball. He hit .292, .378, .566, respectable strikeout and walk rates. And that was over 76 games in high A, which he had 21 homers. He earned the promotion to Double A over the final 50 games. And he showed some pretty good things, but the strikeout rate did jump. There were some contact rate concerns there with Jordan Beck. But Beck has power. It's going to play. It's going to play to all fields. Coors Field is going to be great for him. I think he probably boosts his BABIP a little bit in Coors 2 to help that batting average out a bit. I look at Beck, and I think you can see a 30 home run bat if all develops right. He can play center field, but he probably plays a corner. He steals bases. Pretty good athlete in Jordan Beck. He is Nate's number 1 in the system. I have him number 2 next to Adiel Amador, who I will talk about in just a moment. But I do think Beck does bring some intriguing things to the table. I think that this will be a very telling season for Jordan Beck. Can he sustain or hold the contact rates in a decent spot, being in Double and probably Triple A? And that will be the question mark. Because we saw the strikeout rate jump upon moving to Double A, and I just have questions of where's the hit tool? Because I think the contact rates did concern me just a little bit. But if he gets those under control, then I think we could be looking at a really solid power and speed threat, because it's certainly there. We know that he's capable of putting up big power numbers. He's a good athlete. He can steal you some bases. But what does it come with when we're looking at a batting average wise? I think he's going to play better in an OBP league. He takes a walk. He walked at a pretty good clip last year. But again, there are those question marks. We shall see. And I'm looking forward to following Beck this year and seeing what he does as far as the contact. But let's talk a little Adiel Amador, who is my top prospect in the system. He is a hit tool first type bat, plays middle infield, maybe moves to second base long term. When I look at Amador, I think you're looking at one of the best pure hitters in the minor leagues. The contact rates show is he had an 88% overall contact rate and a 93% in zone. Those are rather impressive rates. That shows elite contact. We're talking Luis Ariz level contact skills. Very, very good. He walked nearly as much as he struck out. Actually, he walked more than he struck out, which is pretty impressive. He made it to Double A at the end of the year. I think it's a 70 or better hit tool, which I don't say about many people, but those contact rates check those boxes. The question is, where's the power lie? What kind of strength are we looking at with Amador? Can he get to 15 homers, or is he going to be a sub-10 guy? I think at peak, you are looking at somebody that can get to 15 homers. He's still young. He's still developing. The biggest thing with him is that he's going to have to lift the ball more. Puts way too many balls on the ground. And he does a good job of pulling it so he can get to the pull side power. He had a 47.5% pull rate, but it didn't really result in much because those were all hit on the ground. So that's a little concerning for me with Amador, is that he has to lift the ball more. I hope he doesn't just develop into a guy that pounds it on the ground and tries to beat it out, which might be something that we're looking at. I hope that he can get to that poolside lift, and if he does, he's going to be legit. Because there's speed in the profile too. You look at the speed, and we see someone that ultimately could steal you 20 bags. He's not like a burner, but he runs well enough. He's got good enough instincts. So I really think that you're looking at a potential 15 homer, 20 steal type bat that could hit 300 with good OBP skills. Amador could be a stud if he just lifts the ball a little more. So we'll be watching closely this year. Probably starts in AA, probably gets some time in AAA, and maybe he gets a cup of coffee to end the year in Colorado, which would be a lot of fun. We'll see how it shakes out. It's a very safe profile, kind of the opposite of this next guy, who is a lot of fun, in Yanquiel Fernandez. Just the polar opposite of Adiel Amador, in the sense of he is going to pound the ball. His EVs are really, really good. He showed actually really good strikeout skills in high A, but then he jumped to double A. He went from 18% to 33%. The hardest thing for me with Fernandez is, where do the contact skills fall? Because each of the last 2 years, we're looking at 40 and 38% chase rates. Those are very high chase rates. And while it is passable for some, like, I don't think you should take chase rate, and this is a good tip for everybody, like, I wouldn't take chase rate as just like a blanket kind of thing, because look at Fernandez. Fernandez is a big guy with long levers, and he has a bigger strike zone. He's going to be more prone to chase. Take a Ceddanne Rafaela, who is much smaller, who also chases at a similar clip to Yanquiel Fernandez. Those guys are totally different players. And so the chase rates, I think, shouldn't be as worried about Fernandez 40%, which is concerning. I'd be more concerned with the fact that he's hyper-aggressive, swinging at 56% of pitches last year, and he made contact less than 70% of the time. There's no speed. The defense is a question mark, but he does have a big arm. He has a cannon for an arm, but he has good power. We know the calling card will be the power here with Fernandez. If the contact skills tick up a bit, we could be looking at a very, very enticing player here. I still like Fernandez. I think this year will be very telling on him. What about this guy? Zach Veen. We have not seen Veen in a while. He's kind of one of those like out of sight, out of mind type guys. Dealt with injuries, and ultimately, when he's been healthy, he's been kind of the polar opposite of what we've thought that he would be. So, he played 46 games last year in Hartford, hit 209, had a 304 OBP, stole 22 bases. He had just 2 home runs. When he was coming into the draft, he was billed as this elite projection power guy. Like, you look at the frame, he's 6'3", he's 190. It's like, okay, like, there's some things to dream on here, but he hasn't tapped into the power at all. He has 29 minor league home runs, but those have actually ticked down. His first season in 2021, he had 15. And then in 2022, when he played 20 more games, he had just 12. These are playing in hitter-friendly environments. And then we saw him hit just 2 in 46 games last year. You look at the AFL, when I saw him in 2022, he hit just 1 homer in 21 games. That's a hitter-friendly, home run-friendly environment. And then he played some winter league ball, too, this year. He hit 0 home runs, but it was just 9 games. With Veen, what are we looking at? Like, will he get to this power? Or will he just be this elite runner? Because he has just totally flipped the script on what we thought he could be. He steals bases at an elite clip. I mentioned 22 last year in 46 games. The year before that, It was 55 stolen bases combined both levels, 126 games. He ran wild in the AFL. He's got such, I wouldn't say Veen's like the fastest runner, but he has long strides. He has good instincts on the base paths, and he's quick jumps. So with Veen, I think you're just questioning, will he tap into the power? I mean, he's still young. He's just 22 years old. He just turned 22 this offseason. So full year this year will be 22. He'll probably start in AA, get to AAA. Can he begin to tap into more of this power? Because I really do think that there's a chance he could be a very interesting power speed threat if all clicks. The contact skills are fine. We saw the strikeout rate trend upward in AA last year, much like Fernandez. But at the end of the day, I still think that Veen can make enough contact. He can get to the poolside pop to hit 20 home runs, and he can steal you bases. He's got to stay healthy, and he's got to show a couple of things to us this year for me to really buy back in to Zach Veen. But Veen's an intriguing prospect to watch. I'd say keep a really close eye on him, and we'll see what he does. This next guy I have ranked pretty similar to him. That's Sterling Thompson. He plays second base. He plays corner outfield. He plays third base. He's one that was lauded for his hit tool. He posts good batting averages. He posts pretty low strikeout rates. He walks at a decent clip. Much like the other guys in AA, we saw the strikeout rate bump up, but he did hit for some homers. He steals bases. And he had a pretty good showing in the AFL as well when I saw him last year. He pulls the ball, but also he can go the opposite field. He's got a really good line drive approach. Where does he play defensively? I think is still a question mark. I'm curious to see where he lands there. But I do think that Sterling Thompson is someone that is a pretty intriguing player. Still want to see what he can do in the higher levels. We'll probably see him in AA and AAA this year. So it gets advanced pitching. What does it look like? Because one thing to note about these Rockies ballparks, they are very hitter-friendly. Fresno's a hitter-friendly environment. Spokane is a very hitter-friendly environment, high A. Hartford's interesting. Hartford can be a tough place to hit at times, but it still plays the hitter's part. And obviously in AAA, the PCL, very hitter-friendly. So you have to kind of look at these samples and look a little bit deeper. And Thompson is one of those that the contact rates are really good. There is some sneaky juice in the bat. What kind of stolen base threat is he? Long term, I don't know. He's 6'4", 200. Clocking him in the AFL, he's not the best runner. So, I don't think he's a huge stolen base threat. But he could give you some 20 home run pop. He could steal 10 bags. I think he's going to come with a good average in OBP. So, that will be something to watch with Mr. Sterling Thompson. But this next guy, I think, is going to be a massive breakout this year. I've written about him a lot. He is getting a lot of buzz this offseason, and rightfully so. That's Robert Colaz, the Rockies. DSL guy last year, he was incredible. But beyond just being incredible, he put up some pretty gaudy metrics. With Colaz, he posted a 107 mile an hour 90th percentile exit velocity. He was 17 years old. Turned 18, but also he was 17 to start the year. 103.5 is MLB average. They normally tick up about 3 to 4 miles an hour between 18 and 22. Not saying that's the case for Colaz. It's different for everybody. But Colaz is a very strong hitter. 6'2", 200, really good bat speed, really good lower half. The power comes easy. This may be 70 grade juice when all is said and done. It's wild the kind of power that Colaz has. It came with respectable contact rates as well in DSL. Obviously, we have to take DSL data with a little grain of salt for various reasons, but I look at Robert Colaz and man, I just think that there is this huge power upside. I think he can make enough contact to be a potentially average hitter. We'll see what it looks like as he kind of moves up boards, but Clegg just has really sneaky data to the point where I don't think people have realized how good the power could be here. For his age, the best power out there, like from a 9th percentile standpoint, there's nobody his age that had better power. He stands alone. So I think Clegg could be one of these guys that moves up boards pretty significantly this year. I'm betting on a breakout here, and I'm very excited to see what Robert Clegg will do this year. He may skip complex ball. We'll see. But I am really curious to see what he looks like this year. So, Robert Clegg, one to watch pretty closely. Let's talk a little Hunter Goodman. Goodman is pretty interesting, kind of polarizing player who debuted last year. There is massive pop in the frame. There's never been any denying that kind of power that he has. Last year in the minors, hit 34 homers. He debuted. He hit 1 in the majors in 23 games, but he also had 3 triples and 4 doubles in his small major league sample. But you look in the minors combined, he had 64 extra base hits in the minors in 106 games, which is incredible. And he added another 8 professionally. I say professionally, in the majors. I look at Goodman, and I think this could be someone. Obviously, he's not a catcher anymore. That was kind of fun to dream on, him being a catcher and putting up those kind of stats. But in an outfield, corner infield position, like, the bat will play. He's got really good pop, and that's clear. Really good exit velocities. The contact skills are just the question mark. How much contact will Hunter Goodman make? I think we still have to figure that out. I think this year will be pretty telling. But he's 24 years old. I think he's slated to play pretty much every day in Colorado. You couldn't ask for a better hitter environment for Goodman, and it comes with the big pop. Goodman's a pretty interesting buy this year. I think the value probably still hasn't caught up to what I think that he can be. But I'm pretty excited to see what Hunter Goodman can do this year in the majors. Let's talk Chase Dollander, who Dollander was like the consensus top arm coming into last year's draft. Going into the college season, it was like, okay, it's Chase Dollander. And then obviously Skeens began to get some love and bumped up boards. There was Hurston Waldrop. There's a lot of guys. And in the meantime, Dollander's stuff took a step back. It was pretty interesting, but Dollander still has talent. I think he can get right and be one of these arms that kind of transcends Coors Field. Not to say he's going to be an elite arm, because that's hard to do, pitching in Coors. But I think we could see Dollander get back to finding his stuff, sitting mid to upper 90s again with a fastball and showing that good ride and better shape that we saw in 2022. Showing that big sweepy slider in the mid 80s, and also throwing a changeup and curve. I think that Dollander has the stuff to be a guy that pitches to a somewhere in the 3s ERA range in Colorado. Very hard to do. I understand that. He dropped down on board significantly for FYPDs when he was drafted by Colorado. But this is what Colorado's going to do. They are not going to get top pitchers to sign in Coors, so they have to draft him. I think Dollander could be a really good arm, but obviously the Coors effect hurts him a lot. So somebody to watch pretty closely, but also he's somebody that could really take off. And I am pretty excited to watch what Chase Dollander does, because I know that the talent level is there. He's certainly somebody that could make it work in a very hard place to pitch. Dion Jorge. Jorge is someone that he has all the intangibles. When you look at the 6'3", 170 frame, it's like this guy has the frame, he has the power potential. Hopefully he taps into it. The contact skills are very good. There's no denying the contact. He might be one of the better contact hitters in the game, much like Audio Amador. But the power is very questionable. Last year, he had a 9th percentile exit velocity of 99 miles an hour, average EV of 82. Those are pretty alarming numbers. Not good at all. He was 19 in the DSL in 2022, and he was stateside in 2023. He came and played full season ball, had a pretty aggressive approach. I think this year is a really big year for Dion Jorge. All the intangibles are there, in my opinion. He's got the frame. He's got the contact skills. He can run well. But I do think he's going to have to show us a little more pop. Maybe he comes in the year a little more filled out. And if he does, getting to that power, I will be very interested to see what Dion Jorge can do, because I still believe there's some prospect intrigue there. This guy could be a top 100 prospect if all clicks for him. He is a very talented player. So we'll watch him closely. He probably starts in single A, gets the bump to high A. There's certainly intriguing aspects of his game to keep a close eye on. Drew Romo is somebody that I was way too low on prior to this offseason. When I went back and I dug in, it's like, okay, there are some things here to really like with Drew Romo. He is a better hitter, switch hitter, but better from the left side than the right. But he makes good contact. He doesn't strike out a ton. He got better as the season went on. He doesn't strike out. He's never been above 20% in his career. It's really one of these profiles that he may have to get to, like, the ideal launch angles. He's got good, strong zone contact skills, but what kind of power is it? I think he could be a 15-homer bat that gets on base at a high clip, but where does the average land? To be a viable fantasy catcher, you don't need to be a stud. Romo's going to play because he's really good behind the plate, very good defensively. That's kind of why the Rockies drafted him. But there are skills that I think could lead him to be a fantasy viable bat. So Romo's a fun one that I really like. Interesting one for me is Sean Bouchard, who Bouchard himself is looking like he's going to be an everyday guy in Colorado. They've come out and said they want him to play every day in the corner outfield spot, which is huge. And Bouchard might be somebody that's flying under the radar, and props to Nate Handy, who wrote this article, because he was way on Bouchard well before anybody else. He loves Sean Bouchard and has for some time. And now it looks like Bouchard may have a chance to take an everyday role. Last year, he was very solid. While he didn't play a ton of games due to injury, when he was on the field, he looked really good. This is a guy that debuted back in 2022 and back in 2023, or 2022 in AAA. In 69 games, he hit 20 homers and stole 12 bases. Last year, he came up with the Rockies. He played 21 games. He had 4 homers, slashed 316, 372, 315. So Bouchard, he's a tough one because he's a 27-year-old prospect. He still has minor league options. What do they do with him if he struggles? Maybe he gets sent down. But Bouchard is somebody to keep a close eye on here that I think could be a really solid player. As is this guy. Go back to being an 18-year-old. We were jumping 10 years back on player ages. Derek Bernard. He actually grew up in the U.S., but he moved to the Dominican. He signed as one of the youngest players In the 2022 international class, he was a 2-year DSL guy, which is a little concerning. I mean, here's the deal, though. Like, some guys repeat the DSL because they were struggled. Bernard repeated the DSL for tax purposes, for a split signing bonus. Another interesting caveat. He's pretty aggressive, but he showed really good exit velocities last year, had 21 extra base hits in 42 games. The power is really good. There are some questions about the hit tool, but he struck out just 17.8% of the time last year. So you take good contact, you take good EVs, and I like Derek Bernard as somebody to watch pretty closely. It's coming stateside this year, so we'll see ultimately what he can do. But I like Derek Bernard a lot in the system to move up. Another interesting player is Benny Montgomery. I feel like we've been waiting on Montgomery for some time. Montgomery was a first-round pick, top 10 pick at that, and we have been waiting for a while to see, like, what's going to happen. He's actually feel like he's gotten skinnier. I saw him in the AFL, was a little bit disappointed by his size. He's 6'4", but we always thought, man, this guy's going to put on weight. He's going to get to power, but he hasn't. He's really struggled with ground balls, 63% ground ball rate this past year. And I just wonder if he's going to get enough lift to actually get to some power. He actually was pretty good in the AFL, but when I saw him, he didn't look too great. I'm not going to hold that against him, just one look, or I think I saw him 2 or 3 times actually, but he is someone that's tough to evaluate because the player that Benny Montgomery can be, I don't think is the player that we've seen so far. Now, he will need to show it soon. He was a 20-year-old all last year, turned 21 in September, so this will be his age 21 season. What does Benny look like? That's what I'm looking forward to seeing this year. Can Benny Montgomery take a step forward? Can he lift the ball a little more? I think those are questions that we still need answered. There's lots of other names here to discuss. I feel like there is good depth in the system. It's got a lot of high-end talent, but there is some depth here too. Several arms to discuss. Carson Palmquist, he's one I like a decent bit. He had a very good year last year. He threw 70 innings in high A and then pitched in double A too. He was really good over his first 4 double A starts. Then he had a rough one. He has a funky arm slot. It's a questionable 3-pitch arsenal. Sits low 90s on the fastball. He's a tough one to kind of get. He's a lefty, so he's kind of deceptive and crafty at times. But arms in Coors Field are never great for fantasy purposes. And then when you look at the arsenal, when you look at the strike throwing, it's like maybe this guy's just a decent arm. Maybe he's a swing man. Maybe he pitches long relief. I still think all that is to be determined. But Palmquist is pitching in Major League Spring Training, which is encouraging. Kind of shows you what they think about him. I think he's a pretty good player personally. But the org will need to prove and show that they want him to be a starter, which I think they're giving him every chance to be. But right now, I think that's still up in the air. Next arm, though, Gabriel Hughes, I do believe, is a starter. Unfortunately, went down with Tommy John last year, as we did a lot of Rockies arms, actually. They had a lot of arms that had TJ all around the same time. The results weren't great. He had a 5.50 ERA in 37 innings in Spokane, which is high A, and then a 7.14 in 29 double A innings. But I do think that he pitched a lot better than that number, the ERA specific number, suggests. His xFIP last year, 342 and 406 in double A, which is encouraging. So I look at that. Gabriel Hughes is a strike thrower. He pounds the zone, which is his big thing. He doesn't walk a lot of guys. So if he can miss bats to the upper levels and maintain the command upon returning, then I'm rather interested in what Gabriel Hughes can do. Yeah, he's probably a starter long-term, but how good of a starter? That's the question. We do have a question about Cole Carrick, who I absolutely just skipped over in my rankings for some reason, but we'll discuss Cole Carrick here. The question was, who is the better CC, Chris Clegg or Cole Carrick? Certainly Cole Carrick. I wish that I could have gotten to that level of baseball. Obviously, I floundered out early in high school and was a much better golfer than a baseball player. But thank you I'll take that as a compliment, so I appreciate that. But let's talk Cole Carrick. Carrick is really interesting. 65th pick in the draft last year. He looked brilliant coming stateside upon the draft and debuting looking like a potential someone that can move up boards pretty significantly. I mean, the complex he mashed, he hit 2 home runs and stole 7 bases in 13 games with a 396, 464, 688 slash. Like, all right, we've seen enough. Moving on to high A. Well, guess what? He hit there too. 3 homers, 6 steals in 23 games, with a 326, 376, 554 slash line. Cole Carrick absolutely mashed at every level. The interesting thing for me is when I look at the data in college, okay, it doesn't really match like who I think he is. With Carrick, he's someone that actually chased a lot in college, which was kind of a concern for me. Like, how much would he be able to hit? You know, we are looking at a smaller sample that's in the TrackMan database that I have, but he did have a high chase rate, but he countered it with an 87% zone contact. His average EV, it was a small sample, but 77 miles an hour and a 9th percentile of 1015. I don't want to put too much stock in because not all of San Diego State's games were in the database. I think they use Yockerman or Yocker. Yeah, I think they use the Yocker Tech maybe for their batted ball tracking, not TrackMan. So some of the away games, Carrick was in the system. I think there's potential to really tap into more power here for sure. Look at Carrick. Like, okay, I'm not going to put a lot of stock into that smaller sample of college data because the pro data has already blown it away. He catches, he plays shortstop, he plays center field. Like, what an athlete. I hope he can stick behind the plate enough to be a guy that keeps catcher eligibility for fantasy purposes because that's a really fun profile of power, of speed. Maybe there's a decent field to hit there too. I mean, the contact rates look pretty decent on him. I think that this year will be telling for Cole Carrick. I'm curious to watch and see, like, okay, where does this hit tool settle in and where does the power, what does it look like? He'll be 21 to start the year. He'll turn 22 in early May. But Cole Carrick, really fun player with a unique profile. I think I'm a little low on him, honestly. I've got him around the 250 overall range, and I might be a little low here. But, you know, he's somebody that to keep my eye on very closely and watch as he moves up because there's a pretty intriguing profile here. A couple of quick hits that I do want to talk about. Warming Bernabel was a name for a while, 2022. And I saw him in the AFL. I saw the chase rates, and I was just out. He swung at a lot of ugly pitches that weren't even close. And that's my concern. He just chases way too much. So Jack Mahoney is a pitcher they drafted this year out of South Carolina. Got to see him a lot in college, right in my neck of the woods. So I look at Jack Mahoney, and he's a very interesting arm that I think could move up boards and be interesting in this system. He's got pretty decent stuff. He was an injured guy in 2022 and came back last year and really progressed as the year went on. So I like Mahoney a good bit. Michael Prosecki is a fun one to watch, a pitcher in the system, as is Gerard Candy, who I know Nate is very high on. So there's some arms to keep an eye on that could be, you know, I don't want to push Rocky's arms too high for dynasty purposes. That's really tough. But ultimately, when I look at these guys, I'm like, okay, there's some intrigue here with what all three of those guys bring to the table. I do want to talk a little bit of Brian Betancourt. He's 20 years old now. He was 19 most of last year, but he is a very interesting player. Betancourt, ultimately catcher first base type. I think he probably lands at first base, but we'll see. He's 5'11", 170. It might be a little small there, honestly. But I know the results weren't super interesting last year when he moved to single A. He hit just 4 homers and 450 plate appearances, hit just 244, 325, 327. But we saw in the DSL in 2022 him really mash. So I'm curious, like, does this trend continue? Like, does he look more like his single A self in 2024 or his DSL self? So keep a close eye on those guys. Also, Kyle Karros, who they drafted last year, is another one. I mean, Cole Carrick flew upward significantly. I think Kyle Karros can be too, as a UCLA guy who has pretty intriguing stuff. I know he didn't put up flashy numbers last year between the complex and single A, but the college stuff was pretty good. Really good contact skills. I mean, 86% zone contact in college. Chased at a low clip of 23%. You look at the exit velocities, and that's really the biggest thing. He had a 102 mile an hour 90th in college, which probably translates to closer to like sub 100 with wood, and an 87 mile an hour average EV. But I do think I like Karros' ability to hit, and maybe he can potentially grow into something. We'll see. He's 6'5", 220. So you look at him, he's like, this guy should get to more power. But that's to be determined. That's why these guys are watch list guys for 2024 that really could move up boards. Jordy Vargas is another arm. I think he had TJ last year, so watching him pretty closely. I know that Eloise Montero is not a prospect any longer, but Montero's raking in spring training, so he's worth talking about that he could get a spot in this lineup. You know, we'll see, but I love the power potential there. If the contact rates do tick up a little bit, I'd love to see where it goes. But looking at the Rockies farm, there is a lot of talent at the top, and I think there's a lot of depth, especially with arms. That's what they've drafted. It's a lot of pitchers. And ultimately, I don't know how it pans out. They have to draft pitchers in order to excel because they're not going to get the top guys to sign there. They are going to draft them, and hopefully they hit on a couple. Hopefully a couple of them can pitch in Coors Field. They have the bats. They do an excellent job on the international side. I think people laugh at the Rockies, but I do like the farm system here. So the Rockies, a lot of upside at the top. There are some really fun names, but this has been another edition of the Dynasty Dugout Show. Thank you for hanging out with us today. If you want to watch this later, we'll be up on YouTube. And if not, I appreciate you joining us. Hope you have a great rest of your Tuesday.
Now Taxes is 100% free when you file in the TurboTax app if you didn't file with us last year.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, just do your own taxes in the app by 2/18.
What if I have lots of forms?
All good, all 100% free.
What if I had 3 jobs?
Still 100% free.
What if I once saw Bigfoot?
That has nothing to do with taxes, so still 100% free.
Now that's what I'm talking about.
Now this is Taxes. See if you qualify in the TurboTax app. Excludes TurboTax Live, must start and file in app by 2/18.